Like this is new. If they knew the history, this is actually 35 years old.
They knew about it back then. They looked into it.
Yeah.
They found that those things were true.
Well,
they just didn't know the cause.
Well, thanks to Dr. Cheney's sophisticated testing and the funding from Ted Van Zelst, we were doing all these innovative things years before the CDC knew about them.
Wow.
In fact, it drove them crazy because they saw technology out here that they hadn't even seen yet.
So it's interesting you say this. So it sounds to me like if there was somebody that has a lot of money, that has a family member or themselves is going through this, they have the ability to fund the type of research that could potentially lead to a permanent solution for this.
Absolutely.
So if somebody out there is watching this who has this kind of money, which there are a lot, and they're going through this, they have an avenue.
Yeah. And even if the cure hasn't arrived yet, we know enough about this to develop strategies that we can move ourselves into the state while we're waiting for that cure to come along.
The funding of that cure to go along. So what's it gonna take? What kind of funding of what? What is it gonna take for us to find the solution to this? Is it a complete change in the world environment? And is that what we really need, or is there a more personal down level we can get to where we can heal ourselves in such a way to when you aren't as responsive to mold as you?
Well, as you've already seen, what can we do on a personal level?
Yeah.
To address this?
Sure.
Well, as we've already seen, those who become mold aware have taken that first step in knowing exactly what they have to avoid to move themselves higher up on the power curve. And just as simple as raising somebody's consciousness so that they have the willpower, the idea in their mind that, oh yeah, this is something I really need to get off me, I need to stay out of this building, that makes a difference almost immediately.
Say a percentage difference. What would that look like? I mean, with Sienna, by just avoiding it, I could say 90%. I think there's just a 10% left. We've watched all of her neurological tics go away just by coming to the desert.
Yeah.
We've watched
headaches gone.
Headaches are gone. We've watched her fatigue go away. We've watched her wake up and she has energy in the morning. We've watched her when she's reading. She's had issues reading since the very beginning of her life.
The memory comes back.
Crazy thing is she can read now and it's fluent.
Yeah.
Right? And then another thing that's happened is this ADD-ness. She's more focused when she needs to be. All of this has happened simply by moving to the desert.
Astonishing.
So maybe for those that have this certain subset of the population, if they have the ability, it seems like the ideal would be to move to an area that is pristine a vast majority of the time, because the ambient environment, there's not a lot of moisture in the air.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier. But even if you can't,
but a lot of people can't.
Yeah, if you can't, but if you are acutely aware of your exposures and preemptively avoid those areas, once you've learned.
Once you've figured it out,
yeah,
I walk into this building, I feel horrible afterwards. You stop walking into that building.
Yeah, and those,
I don't need to go to that Ross.
And those that you can't predict, but you can feel because it's starting to affect you, if you can decontaminate quickly within a half an hour of a really painful exposure, you can head off the cytokine cascade that is what's really creating most of the immunological damage.
And that's when you said all those big words, it sounds like, so when the immune system reacts and everything starts to inflame,
yeah,
right, to protect itself.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to stop the runaway train when it's only going a few miles an hour rather than when it's going 100 miles an hour off the end of the trestle.
I see. So the best way to get that done is to decontaminate if you happen to walk into one of these buildings. And then so it sounds like you can train this. Sure. You can train it. So the first step, and I don't know if mold avoidance is the right terminology. It seems like a different way, mold intelligence. Mold strategizing. Mold IQ,
yeah.
Mold strategizing, and maybe mold strategy. Maybe the better way to talk about it is in that way, to where if you have the right mold strategy, you've gained enough intelligence to where now you can step out into a pristine environment to where you, quote, unmask. You then have this ability finally. But unless you have, we found that Sienna did get this ability, but she still didn't know what she was feeling. It wasn't until she met more people, which you called moldies. She met more moldies that she started, she didn't feel like she was alone. She didn't feel like she was weird, right? We in fact repackaged all of what she was feeling and calling her a superhero, because she now has a superpower.
Absolutely.
She has a mold, we call her the moldicator, right? And so she can walk into a place and she has this special superpower, we call her that.
Yeah, and people who have this ability, they can help so many others just by making them aware and giving them an example.
So if you could say, create some way for someone to come and go through what you know is a moldy area and what you know is a great area, and they can feel the difference and you can help them understand what it is they're feeling, then they're starting to get the right tool set. The right tool set so that they can go back to where they're from, and then they're able to live the lifestyle you're talking about.
Sure.
Very normally in Florida, very normally in Georgia or Alabama or New Orleans, or just imagine all these different places that we know are extremely, high in moisture. And clearly mold could grow about anywhere, where they now can live in that environment and can recognize it and live a normal life.
What was interesting to me about the moldy schools is that all the mold didn't get bad equally. It was the areas that got the most direct water damage during this period of amplification. And that convinced me that something was coming in on the atmosphere that was exacerbating these particular colonies, that maybe the others were getting worse a little bit, but the clustering of illness in direct proximity to these areas.
Active leaks.
Yeah.
Active mold.
Yeah.
Currently growing.
Yeah.